how's it going, everyone? It is Skullzi here with the latest and the greatest gaming news. Another day, another Todd Howard interview. It seems like Todd Howard has been doing even more interviews than he usually has ever done ever since this Microsoft and Bethesda acquisition news went down. Only this interview is very interesting because we got an hour-long session with Todd Howard. This interview was between Develop Brighton Digital as a prelude for Todd Howard to accept the Develop Star Award here very soon. The Develop Star Award is awarded to game developers who have made very large recent contributions and achievements in the gaming industry, and this will be one of like many awards that Todd Howard has received over his 26 years in the gaming industry. Now, this interview was uploaded on October 29th over on the Develop Brighton conference channel. However, this video is unlisted, so hopefully no one gets mad at me for talking about this. I am currently in a full breakdown mode of this entire hour-long interview where I plan on summarizing everything and talking about all the most important pieces of information. However, just as I was getting ready to do that video, which I'm still doing by the way, I came across something super interesting in like the first 10 minutes of the video. Something that kind of deserves its own video separate from everything else. Now, don't worry, I will still be doing my complete breakdown of this Todd Howard interview. That video will be uploaded tomorrow, but today I want to talk about something very important that Todd Howard talks about, because this is new confirmation of new information that we haven't really had confirmed before regarding Starfield and the Elder Scrolls 6, and it's 10 minutes and 30 seconds in this interview. The topic of this current conversation was procedural generation in Bethesda Game Studios games, and Todd Howard says something very interesting. First off, before I play the clip for you, I do want to make it clear that I know a lot of people have been worrying and talking about how much procedural generation will be in Starfield, because a lot of people don't want it to be like No Man's Sky. Bethesda Game Studios are known for their handcrafted worlds, and if they step away from handcrafting their worlds too much and focus too much on procedural generation, could that mean their games could lose that charm that makes them feel special? I mean, essentially yes, but one thing you do need to keep in mind here is that Bethesda Game Studios has been using fairly large amounts of procedural generation for a very long time. Arena and Daggerfall were basically mostly procedural generated in terms of landscape and dungeons and stuff. However, Morrowind was where Bethesda Game Studios took the turn to handcrafted worlds. However, ever since Oblivion, I would say, they have continued to use procedural generation, usually in things like the plant cover and tree coverage of the world, because AI can do a decent enough job at making the world look believable and feel handcrafted by placing plants and trees and stuff. And then even when Bethesda uses procedural generation like this, Todd Howard did say they still go in and they do some handcrafting anyway, and they remove stuff that doesn't make sense, and they basically use procedural generation as just an asset or an extension of things that they could do themselves, but the AI can do just as well for the most part. And this isn't limited to like plant coverage and stuff, it also has to do with random encounters and quest generation and stuff like that. But with all that in mind, Todd Howard was asked about how future procedural generation will be used in Starfield and the Elder Scrolls 6, and this is what Todd Howard says right here.
We like to experiment each game with somewhat procedural stuff, and then where it's not working out, we go in and touch it. And the stuff we're doing now, we're pushing procedural generation further than we have in a very, very long time with the stuff that's coming up.
Todd Howard says recently that Bethesda Game Studios has really been pushing procedural generation forward more than they ever have before in their previous games, meaning Bethesda Game Studios will use procedural generation in Starfield and the Elder Scrolls 6 in ways that they have never used it before, or at least in more advanced ways than they have ever used it before, which is kind of what I'm leaning towards Todd Howard meaning, more so than him actually saying that the games will be fully procedural generated. I mean, they then immediately joke about Starfield and the Elder Scrolls 6 being completely procedurally generated, so we know that's not the case.
So Elder Scrolls 6, all procedurally generated, confirmed. Lovely, thank you.
But I didn't think that was going to be the case anyway. To be honest, I did expect some procedural generation, because like I said earlier, I did know that Bethesda Game Studios does use it to a certain degree, but it seems like they're doing something even further than what they've done before here. Now, does that mean that there will be like a ton of procedural generated planets and that Starfield could essentially be an endless game because it'll just keep generating new planets as you go on, with there still being like a core handcrafted portion of Starfield to be explored and stuff, and the procedural generation will just kind of be used used as an extension of the end game, that way there are still more planets to explore and stuff to do, or does Todd Howard mean that procedural generation is going to be like used kind of like how Borderlands does it, where even the weapons and crap are procedurally generated, loot's procedurally generated, and everything is just random except for some handcrafted parts of the world? That doesn't sound like that would be the best move by Bethesda in my opinion, and I'm sure that they aren't planning on using procedural generation as like the main staple of their game development process. They know it works well for them. They're not new to this. In fact, like Todd Howard has said, they even go back over procedurally generated stuff and add some handcrafting elements to it because it doesn't always work properly even for them in those circumstances. So even though this sounds scary, I wouldn't start freaking out and saying or assuming Starfield will be like some kind of No Man's Sky clone. In my opinion, what Todd Howard meant and what he was talking about was the technology behind the procedural generation. It's probably even more advanced than it ever has been before, which is a given because it's the next generation of gaming. Obviously, the AI and stuff would advance along with it. And with this new advanced procedural generation technology, it would allow Bethesda Game Studios to utilize it to save time in crafting certain areas of the game world, like outside in the wilderness, like how Todd Howard has said they use it for plants, trees, bushes, and stuff. I think this new technology will be able to do stuff like that, only to a much larger and advanced degree. In fact, even though Bethesda will be using procedural generation more, I think that we'll have the feeling, or at least it'll seem like they're using it less, because if this technology is more advanced, and as advanced as I assume it to actually be, then we kinda won't be able to tell most of the time what was procedurally generated and what was actually handcrafted, at least when it comes to tree coverage, plant coverage, maybe some quest generation and stuff like that. There is another possibility though that Todd Howard could be talking about here that a lot of people might not realize, and that is something I've talked about in previous videos. When it comes to large open world RPG games, one of the main limiting factors on the development side of things and the financial side of things is hiring a wide range of voice actors to properly voice all the characters in the game world. Usually they only have a small pool of voice actors, and you can kind of pick up on the same voice actor playing as different NPCs in the world. This is something that The Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion is notoriously memed on for like 4 or 5 people doing the voice of hundreds of NPCs, and the main reason for this is because it would take a ton of time and a ton of money to record all the dialogue for all these different NPCs and make it feel unique. There's really no way to get around this, except now there is, using artificial intelligence, because as I covered in previous videos, Microsoft actually has license agreements and partnerships with OpenAI and other developers of artificial intelligence whose expertise is actually this kind of stuff, NPC voice dialogue. These algorithms can somewhat change the recorded dialogue of NPCs and make new voices by changing the pitch, the tone, and stuff like that of stuff voice actors have already recorded into the game. We can see some of this used, I believe, in Watch Dogs Legion. However, it seems kind of off at times, so the technology isn't fully advanced yet. And not only that, but this algorithm can then also write the NPC's dialogue on the fly based upon what the player is asking or what their actions in the game world have been. So that basically means this algorithm can not only voice characters in the game world, but determine what they would say in a realistic manner. And even though this technology is somewhat early now, Microsoft is directly working with these algorithms, with these artificial intelligences, and have direct licenses with some of the companies who are actually using this technology to the height of its current capabilities. So by the time that The Elder Scrolls 6 comes out, I would totally believe if a lot of the NPCs in a world were voiced and had their dialogue written by these algorithms. Of course, there will still be human voice actors, plenty of them in the game as well, because like I've been saying, Bethesda Game Studios will use these algorithms, these AIs, and these procedural generation assets as an extension of their handcrafted world. It will never be a replacement of their handcrafted world, it'll just be an extension of it, because these algorithms can do a lot of things just as well as a person can do them, and if they can't, Bethesda will take notice of it and fix it. When it comes to the game worlds, that is one thing Bethesda Game Studios usually always nails, even if there are other like bugs and stuff in the game, so I wouldn't worry too much when you hear this procedural generation talk, because for the reasons that I just explained, I really don't foresee Bethesda Game Studios using it as their main development asset. Starfield will not be like No Man's Sky. Don't worry. Hopefully I made all of this kind of less scary and make more sense for everyone, but either way, only time will tell. We'll just have to wait and see how Starfield is when the game comes out, or whenever Todd Howard decides to finally actually show us this game. That's basically going to finish up today's video though. For the full breakdown of this interview, you can check my channel tomorrow. I'll have the video uploaded then. But as always, let me know what you think about this news down in the comments below. If you like the content, be sure to give the video a thumbs up, subscribe, and turn notifications on so you don't miss the latest uploads. Actually, subscribing right now would be a huge help because YouTube is doing a subscription purge. So if you subscribe, that would be a great help. And you might also notice YouTube may have accidentally unsubscribed you. Stupid YouTube. How efficient. But anyway, that's going to finish up today's video. This video was brought to you by the following amazing people, and if you want to get a video shout out like this, you can support the channel over on Ko-fi, Patreon, or here on YouTube as an exclusive channel member. Links for all of this and more are down in the description below, and as always, thank you for watching. Be sure to tune in next time, when Starfield's first gameplay showcase will entirely be procedurally generated. That could be interesting.
It just works.